Hey there and welcome back to XCOM 2. My name is Pete and today we complete another episode of our Legend Ironman walkthrough of XCOM 2 War of the Chosen. Last time we left off after our very first landed UFO mission, a mission that also saw us go up against the Warlock again, and unlike in our first encounter, this time we actually got to take him out. Now there is one thing I forgot to do last episode, and that is to change our research project real quick. As you might remember, in episode 42 we recovered our first Advent turret rack, and because of what it unlocks we want to get that broken down as quickly as possible.
I am still hard at work on the current research priority, Commander.
As you can see, it only takes 2 days to complete this, so we're not losing too much time on the powered armor project, which we will then continue afterwards.
The turrets we see employed by Advent throughout their various facilities and security checkpoints are automated, much in the same way the alien mechanized units are. A significant amount of time was likely spent developing the optical sensors and targeting system, which I expect Shin will want to thoroughly examine following the disassembly process. I'll direct our efforts towards the new research project immediately, Commander. Once we've made progress, I'll send word.
Alright, and with that, let's head back into the world map. As you might recall, we were actually in the process of scanning the triangulated position that is part of the Alien Hunters DLC. Before we can continue with that, however, we are presented with another rumor, this one rewarding us with a scientist. But let's postpone that for now and first finish what we were doing.
Avenger plotting new course.
By the way, without spoiling anything, I do recommend scanning this triangulated position only when your squad is really strong enough. Suffice it to say that the Alien Hunters DLC offers a bit of a challenge. Now, before we can see what exactly that challenge is, we have the psionic training completed for Matt Lewin and Esteban Flores. Matt learns Insanity and Esteban Inspire. And with Esteban here, we will now continue with Soul Steel. And yes, I think it's also about time that we bring our Psi operatives into an actual mission. But for now, let's get them trained up just a little bit more. And Soul Steel here will give Esteban some extra survivability. And even though we will hopefully not need it, it's always good to have. With Matt Lewin, meanwhile, we are going with Schism. I was briefly tempted here to also give him Void Rift, but I don't want to have completely identical builds for both of them. And Schism actually expands upon the recently unlocked Insanity. Again, we will most likely see all of this in action very soon, I think. And with that, let's head back to the world map now and finally finish scanning that triangulated position.
There are a number of unusual energy signatures permeating this area, Commander. I'm seeing power fluctuations, intense heat, some psionic activity, all signs of a possible conflict. We should move quickly.
Commander, you and I both know what Vahlen meant to our operation. She was our chief scientist, one of our most valuable assets. With your permission, I'd like to lead this operation personally. I was able to get you out of Advent's clutches. Maybe I can do the same for her.
And yes indeed, after Lily Shen accompanied us on the Shen's Last Gift mission, Bradford will now come with us on this one. And it's going to be a unique mission to say the least. As you can see, we have 30 enemies waiting for us, some of them Vipers and at least one of them unknown. Time to assemble a squad that can hopefully deal with all of that. And again, Bradford will come with us on this one, so we only have 5 more spots to give out.
Listen up, people. I'll be personally taking the lead on this operation. We're looking for someone, one of the finest minds to ever serve XCOM. I don't know what we're going up against, but we know she's out there, and we're not gonna let anything stand in our way.
And indeed, here we are. This is not going to be the final squad, although some of them are. Most importantly for now, we can see that Bradford is a colonel-ranked ranger, albeit carrying the very unique multi-purpose combat rifle, basically an assault rifle that comes with 6 advanced weapon upgrades that are now actually being boosted up to the rank of superior. Keep in mind, we recently unlocked the respective resistance order. Now, this right here then our final squad, and yes, we are bringing 2 rangers with us in Bradford and Warhawk. Julian also once again comes with us just because we need those experience points for him. Sapphire West meanwhile will be very important because she has the face-off ability. QT might come in handy just because she's capable of hitting basically anything. And then we have Dragonova, who is probably the most important soldier on this mission, and that is solely because of her banish ability. At this point, let's also take a quick look at Bradford. You can see it here, advanced weapon upgrades of every kind. And we're actually also giving him some extra health with the nanoscale vest. On this mission, enemies just love to target him, and with 17 hit points he can take a few shots. Also of note is the 25% stun chance on the arc blade here, which is actually why both Bradford and Warhawk have it equipped. We also want to take note of the fact that we have superior repeaters on both QT and, importantly, also on Dragonova, which means that with every single shot these two take, there is now a 20% chance of instantly killing the target, which, as you can imagine, might synergize very well with Dragonova's ability to fire 7 shots in a row with Banish. Also important today, the Frost Bomb here on Ranger Warhawk, and with that, I think we are finally good to go.
We're in the pipe, 5x5.
I am continually monitoring the energy signatures we detected near the target site. Possible subterranean activity detected. Strong interference blanketing the area. Sensors are unable to penetrate the rock face. We still have a steady read on Vahlen's signal, however. I would advise extreme caution, Central. Biological readings in this area are erratic. In addition to several species of alien
Hold
fauna.
on, Doctor. We've got something.
The data must be preserved at all costs. You must hurry! Take this and find Bradford!
It's her. Unfortunately, her friend never made it to the evac point.
I had hoped to meet my predecessor under less extreme circumstances. Still, I have tracked her signal to an area not far ahead.
Good. Lead the way, Doctor. We're in concealment.
Alright, so we have followed Dr. Vahlen's signal to this cave, and as you can very clearly see, there are signs of human activity here. For now, our goal is to reach Dr. Vahlen's campsite deeper in the cave, and thankfully we start things off in concealment, so let's send out our Reaper to scout ahead.
Watch my back. You cannot run.
Vipers. Why did it have to be Vipers?
Though I share your reservations about this species, there's something different about these creatures. They appear almost underdeveloped. Perhaps an earlier stage of growth or some sort of precursor organism.
Just as long as they're not bulletproof.
Right, so if those are the Vipers mentioned in the mission briefing, then we shouldn't be in too much trouble. As you can see, each one of them only has a meager 2 hit points, although they seem to be carrying a weapon that is somewhat reminiscent of the Boltcaster. So for now, let's just move closer and use concealment to our advantage.
We've got a lot of skulls down here. Human skulls. Someone's been decorating this place.
And indeed, not only are there signs of human activity, but also of something that happened to those humans. And well, considering who we have just met, it might not be too difficult to imagine what happened here. Either way, for now, let's sit tight and finish this first turn on Overwatch.
You will never hide from me.
The Vipers then move, and it is also revealed here that there is actually a 5th enemy in this group, and also that this is not the only group in the vicinity.
There is nowhere to hide.
I have managed to restore portions of Dr. Vahlen's personal research logs. I will begin patching through what I can immediately.
Testing. System dictation. This is Dr. M. Vahlen. Initial entry. It has taken me longer than I care to admit, but the secondary power system is finally operational. Enough so that I can move on to more compelling work.
Right, so for what it's worth, it sounds to me like Vahlen was, or might still be here. But for the moment, I think it's safe to say that we have more pressing matters to attend to. So let's begin things with a simple slash attack from Bradford here. However, thanks to his Bladestorm ability, it will be much more than that.
We're visible here!
And there we go, 3 kills with just a single slash attack, and we even get 2 ability points for the XCOM pool on top of it. Obviously, Bradford cannot be leveled up himself. Now, the Viper pod in the back has also been activated, so at this point we still have 5 enemies left to deal with.
I go where I'm needed.
Let's take care of them one after another, starting with Dragonova.
No compromising.
Up next then we can have Ranger Warhawk kill one with a slash of his own. And for the third one, we hope that QT can hit the 86%er. Thanks to his superior stock, meanwhile, the kill for Julian here is guaranteed. And as you can see, that also earns him the promotion to Paladin, the second highest rank available to Sparks. So we are getting closer to that achievement for reaching the highest rank, but for now let's stay focused on the mission objective. Thankfully the Darklands also has a stock on it, so the last kill here is once again guaranteed.
Hostile terminated. While attempting to salvage materials from what appeared to be a totally inert storage system, I made an astonishing discovery. A single cryostasis unit remained intact and occupied. This changes everything.
Not sure I like the sound of that.
So, sounds like Dr. Vahlen recovered something from a cryostasis unit, and perhaps we find a clue in the room ahead.
I go where you tell me. The target is marked.
Right, no clues just yet, but more enemies, and this time we actually have a proper Viper with 10 hit points among them. Still, at this point I don't think there is any need to hesitate. Sapphire West is guaranteed to hit this time, and with just a bit of luck she should be able to one-shot the Viper.
Hostile target down.
I know where you are.
Okay, so it turns out there was a second proper Viper hiding behind the wall. Not that that really changes much for us.
Stomp, stomp, stomp.
Especially not since that second Viper can easily be flanked by Julian here. For the first of the weak ones then we are sending in Ranger Warhawk, although completely forgetting that he does not have a stock equipped today. A deliberate decision in favor of an expanded magazine, which might come in handy with his serial ability later, but at least for now it forces us to grab the kill here with Bradford. The last shot of this encounter then goes to Dragonova. And with that, the third group of enemies has already been defeated and we can move up the rest of the squad.
It appears to be the remnants of an alien genetics facility. With the damage to these containment units being so severe, I can only imagine the work that was being done here.
Was she living out here? Just what the hell were you up to, Vahlen?
And that is indeed a very good question, especially considering what Tygan just called these containment units. As you can see, we also have some holograms in this room, which are resembling things that we might have seen before, and combine all that with the idea that this might be an alien genetics facility. So if you don't already know, then you might now have a good idea of where this is going.
No place for you to go now.
As we then send Dragonova closer to the campsite, we discover, surprisingly, yet another group of Vipers. Apart from that, however, no signs of life in the camp so far, at least not of any human life. And once again, I don't think this group is anything to fear.
I'm as graceful as a gazelle.
So let's activate them right here and now.
You can never escape my sight.
So, 3 Vipers, 6 hit points, this shouldn't be too difficult. So let's move Sharpshooter West into position, but then take aim with Ranger Warhawk first. Even though he's not guaranteed to hit, an 82%er is worth the shot. After shuffling around a bit with Bradford and QT, our Grenadier then takes aim at enemy number 2. And that brings us to Julian for the third kill.
Could use some ammo over here.
Do I get a badge or something?
And just like that, we bring the turn to an end. Let's see what the next one has in store for us.
I'll keep an eye on it.
I have rerouted the outgoing signal. The unit must have been damaged during whatever conflict occurred here. The complete message is coming through now.
An extreme biological hazard is present throughout this area. Genetically enhanced alien species in this region are of particular concern to the civilian populace. Do not approach under any circumstances. All attempts should be made to avoid contact with these life forms.
This isn't a message. It's a warning.
Well, and it's a warning that might just come a little bit too late, as we now have no other choice but to move deeper into Vahlen's camp.
I am trusting you. You cannot run.
And yes, indeed, that reveals another group of 6 Vipers. It is only the 2 hit point version though, so nothing to worry about, at least not until we advance a bit further.
I will go. The time for hiding is over.
And there we are, 3 more Vipers on the left and another nest of 6 further down the cave, and this last one also includes 4 proper Vipers. All in all, we are looking at a grand total of 15 enemies in this area. So I think it would be a good idea to stay out of their line of sight for now.
You will never
Looks
hide
like
from
Vahlen
me.
had plenty of help. Where did she find these people?
A good question indeed, but one that we will probably not be able to answer here. Instead, let's lay down a kill zone and put the rest of the squad on Overwatch, and then we can get ready to do some good work on the enemy turn.
My eyes are peeled.
Got it covered.
I'll keep an eye on it.
Multiple biological signatures approaching your position. Readings are erratic. Difficult to pinpoint.
How many signatures, Doctor?
Unable to determine at this point. Happy now?
So, in addition to the 15 enemies we are already facing, it looks like the Vipers are getting reinforcements. Thankfully, we do have most of our squad on Overwatch, and even if we didn't, just like regular reinforcements, these Vipers would not get to act on this turn.
That's how it's done.
I have sight beyond vision.
Heads up, people!
There is nowhere to hide.
So, looks like the reinforcements have finally stopped. Now we're getting to the enemies already present in the cave, and against those, Sapphire West's kill zone should hopefully be rather effective.
Target neutralized. Target eliminated.
You can never escape my sight.
At this point then, the 2 pods further in the back also start moving, but crucially do not yet activate. The only one with line of sight at the moment is Dragonova.
I have managed to remove the genetic blockers on the specimen's DNA, allowing the repressed traits to flourish. While subjects Alpha and Beta show promise, it is subject Gamma I find the most intriguing.
Right, so we might have different interpretations of the word intriguing. Either way, as you can see, we currently have a lovely pile of enemies right in front of us. And well, this is exactly why we brought a sharpshooter with face-off on this mission. Let's see how many Vipers Alyssa can kill in one turn. Grappling up to the container here already reveals the first group, but I think we can do better than that and lure even more enemies into range. So let's use Julian's Bombard ability on the other pod. Not only will this get them moving, but also bring down the health of all regular Vipers in this group. Beautiful, that's 2 kills for our Spark and 5 more points of damage to each of the remaining Vipers. They are now scattering and seek cover, but unfortunately for them there's not really much of that available. At least not full cover, everything else does not really concern Alyssa too much. Speaking of which, we do have 1 free pistol shot before we get things going here, so let's use that.
X-ray neutralized.
And then let's activate Face Off against a grand total of 10 targets, and everything she hits would be a kill.
Multiple hostiles eliminated.
Yep, that's the beauty of Face Off on this mission. 10 shots, 8 kills. The few enemies that still remain, not really much of a problem, I would say. So let's first get rid of the one that was outside of Alyssa's sight range. Then we can send Bradford up onto the roof for a guaranteed hit against the next one. And finally, we can cover a bit more ground with Dragonova before she then goes for the last shot.
The only fate possible for aliens.
And there we are, just one more move here and that ends our turn.
I'm being flanked!
No place for you to go now.
And here you can also see it, another wave of Vipers is dropping in, but on this turn they are only allowed to move, so there is no risk of us getting shot, at least not for now.
I believe this may be the last of them, Central. I am not detecting any additional signatures.
Understood. Let's take them out and find Vahlen.
Central, reading a massive drop in temperature directly ahead. Such a large discrepancy defies any natural explanation.
Something tells me that won't be the worst of our problems, Doctor.
Indeed, I think it is safe to assume that we will be fighting more than just 2 hit point Vipers on this mission. But before we venture deeper into the cave to find out what awaits us on the other side, that is exactly what we're going to fight. So let's make this quick, shall we? Julian can already move up a bit, and then his stock will ensure that he gets the kill. Viper number 2, meanwhile, we are targeting with Warhawk, who's got a lovely flanking shot. Enemy number 3 goes to Grenadier QT, once again a guaranteed hit. And the 4th and final one is an easy pistol kill for Sapphire West. Now, if Tigan is to be believed, this should have been all of the enemies, so there is no harm in moving up further. But let's not advance too far here. After all, we have already been warned of unusual temperature readings, so it might be for the best to keep our squad at least somewhat close together.
Central, I am picking up faint traces of human DNA deeper in the facility. It just might be...
Alright, and with that we have ourselves a new objective. Somebody seems to be frozen in this deepest part of the cave here, and so we are left with no other choice but to head deeper to find out whether or not this is in fact Vahlen herself.
Moving to Overwatch.
My subjects, Alpha and Beta, both continue to exhibit exaggerated, sometimes erratic variations on their traditionally observed behaviors. Subject Gamma has grown to become something else entirely. Behind those eyes, there is an intelligence that I have not witnessed in any unaltered specimens of its kind.
And I have to say, so far everything we have heard about Subject Gamma is not exactly reassuring. Still, I guess our task is clear. Let's head deeper into the frozen cave.
In short order.
Alright, so interestingly enough, this does not actually trigger anything. Unfortunately though, we are also not yet close enough to identify the body, but at least we have no enemies in sight, and that means it is safe for the rest of the squad to move up. This here would also be a good moment to take note of any ability cooldowns, because I don't think I'm spoiling anything when I say that the best is yet to come.
The extent to which the Elders tamper with the genetic fabric of their subordinate races knows no bounds. It occurs to me that this is the first male of the species I have ever encountered. Is this a form of population control? Or something more? Am I looking at the fate of my own species?
Not if we can help it.
Right, so for all we know, Subject Gamma is a male. Of what species, however, that remains to be seen. For the time being, at least, the mission here will not proceed unless we get closer to Vahlen's transponder. But before we do that, let's ensure that everyone is in position and reloaded. And then we also have a few more lines of dialogue to listen to before we can continue.
Scanning. Past.
I have I've made a terrible mistake. Commander, I sometimes wish you were here to keep my ambitions in check. Subject Gamma has escaped. A tremor opened, a minute fracture in the containment unit. That was all the creature needed. It shattered the metal, cracking it as if it were glass or a sheet of thin ice.
Damn it, Vahlen. What did you do?
Well, considering that none of the researchers in this facility are left alive, I don't think this comes as much of a surprise. Either way, at this point I think it's pretty clear that Subject Gamma is what we will be facing here today. But before we do, let's spend 2 more turns here listening to the remainder of Vahlen's voice lines.
With limited resources at my disposal, I wonder whether I should have focused my efforts on a single subject, rather than the 3 over which I must now preside. Few of my staff feel comfortable in the containment facility. I myself must therefore keep a constant vigil. Still, the potential benefits far outweigh these concerns, though the unease around Subject Gamma in particular is admittedly contagious. Fisher went off in search of the creature. Damn her heroics. She found no sign of Gamma, but she did uncover a clutch of eggs. Preliminary analysis reveals them to be reptilian in nature. If Gamma is indeed reproducing, if it is somehow communicating with others of its kind, then we are lost.
So, 2 important bits of information here. Number 1, Vahlen was apparently experimenting with not 1 but 3 subjects, while Subject Gamma is confirmed to be reptilian, and well, there is only 1 reptilian alien unit that we know of.
There's that. Vahlen.
Unable to tell from this distance, life signs are being obscured by... I believe this would be Subject Gamma.
Vahlen created a Viper King. Just what we needed.
Right, and there we go. Meet the Viper King with 69 hit points and 3 points of armor. I believe that's actually the toughest enemy we've faced so far in this series, apart from Julian's Sectopod. But this Viper King is arguably much more dangerous. We will talk a bit more about why exactly in a moment. For the moment, we have no other choice but to watch as more Vipers are dropping in as reinforcements. Thankfully, only the versions with 2 hit points, but still, it doesn't really make the upcoming fight any easier. By the way, yes, we could have put everyone on Overwatch before moving closer to the transponder. Admittedly though, that does feel a bit cheap, so instead we're playing this the way I think it was intended to be played, with a full turn ahead of us to take out the Viper King. Now, I have mentioned before that the Viper King is probably one of, if not the most dangerous enemy we have faced so far, and that's not because of his hit points or health pool, but much more because of the fact that every time we take an action, the Viper King gets to take a free reaction. Essentially, this means that during 1 full turn, the Viper King can get somewhere between 8 to 12 actions of his own, and some of those actions can be extremely dangerous. And that means that a successful strategy against the Viper King is A. limiting the actions that we take, and B. shutting down as many of his reactions as possible. And one way to achieve at least that second part would be by stunning the Viper King, which is why we are now having Bradford start things off with a melee slash attack against the Viper King. A slash attack that, as you recall, does have a 25% chance to stun the target, and if it doesn't, then at least it puts Bradford into range for Blade Storm, which then has another 25% chance to stun.
It would seem Vahlen's creations are not intent on making this easy. Stay alert for rapid movements as it attempts to reposition itself. I might need some help.
Right, so I have to admit we're not off to a great start here. The first melee attack did not get the stun, but did trigger a reaction, which then in turn triggered Blade Storm, which then missed, thus failing the second chance to stun the Viper King, and so he got to take a reaction and has bound Bradford. That is the only upside of those reactions, they are only worth 1 action point, so the Viper King can always only move or attack, but not both. One more thing to note at this point is that Blade Storm can also only trigger once per round per enemy, so even if Bradford here had not been bound, it's not like we would have gotten off melee attack after melee attack with him. Still, I would have loved to get the stun though, just to move in our second ranger and perhaps add a few turns to that. Alas, that won't be possible, so let's keep going here and activate Overdrive on Julian. Since it doesn't spend an action point, activating overdrive is not considered an action and thus does not trigger a reaction. Firing the shredder gun, however, very much will. Still, it is one of the most efficient actions we can take here, killing 2 Vipers and shredding the Viper King's armor.
I've conceived of every possible way to end you.
With his reaction then, the Viper King only moves, which is what I had hoped for. However, at this point we are in danger of taking a massive hit with his next reaction, so let's try to avoid that by throwing the Frost Bomb with Ranger Warhawk. Yes, despite what it looks like, the Viper King is actually not immune to that. Right, so at this point the Viper King is frozen for 3 turns, although turns in this case unfortunately only means reactions. So let's make sure he does not get one for this next attack, because since Lightning Hands does not cost an action point, it also won't trigger a reaction. Right, critical hit, and we have also applied some burning damage. Great job here by Sapphire West. And we have a few more actions to give, so let's now take a regular shot. Now, as you can see, this did prompt a reaction, which means for the Viper King another turn has passed, and thus burning damage is also applied for the first time. However, now we get to the fun part, because with 34 hit points left we are now actually guaranteed the kill, as Dragonova can now shoot the Viper King 7 times with 1 action as part of Banish. And not only that, every single one of those 7 shots actually has a 20% chance to instantly kill the target, so let's see which path she takes.
I banish you. Tell your gods I'm coming.
King is down, but we still got more of the others to deal with. We need to clear this area.
They found us.
Alright, and there we are. The Viper King is dead, and dead in this case actually means dead for good. There is actually the possibility that he escapes during the fight, but we did not allow that and thus unlock the Regicide and Viper Vanquisher achievements. Now, on the downside, this also permanently removes the Viper King from the game in rather unspectacular fashion. But keep in mind that Vahlen spoke of 3 specimen, so perhaps it's not all over just yet.
Get ready for a surprise!
Good work, people. It's over. It's not her.
Central, I am not detecting any additional life signs, human or otherwise. The cavern is clear.
And there we are. This officially completes the mission and unlocks the A Forbidden Experiment achievement. We could have tried to obtain 1 more, but there will be other chances to grab that. So for today, let's head back to the base. After all, we have 2 promotions to take care of. You may have noticed that QT also received one with the last kill of the mission.
All Advent gene therapy clinics will be closed tomorrow for equipment upgrades. Initial reports that the suspension of services were the result of dissident activity have been dismissed as radical propaganda.
The soldier that joined us from the Resistance is certainly a quick study, having already surpassed some of our other soldiers' capabilities.
Now, the injury time on Bradford here can of course be safely ignored. This is unfortunately the one and only mission he takes part in. What cannot be ignored meanwhile is the promotion for Grenadier QT, and even though we have been building her up as a heavy gunner, we will not go with hail of bullets this time, for the simple reason that we don't really have trouble hitting stuff with her, while Salvo, the ability to launch a grenade and then still take an action afterwards, is such a huge boost to the action economy that I think even a heavy gunner benefits tremendously from it, especially considering that 9 out of 10 times using a grenade to destroy cover is all that is needed to guarantee a hit. So in my opinion, Salvo is absolutely the way to go here. This then brings us to Julian, and once again we are going with the War Machine choice here. Channeling Field is interesting in theory, giving Julian a damage bonus every time he is targeted, but even for a spark that doesn't really happen that often, not to mention that the damage bonus is also only 1 meager point. Hunter Protocol meanwhile has a chance to trigger every single time an enemy is revealed, and even if that only happens once per mission, as long as the shot hits, the damage output is much larger than anything that Channeling Field will ever be able to produce.
Commander, having successfully recovered one of Dr. Vahlen's genetically modified test subjects, I am eager to begin conducting an autopsy as soon as possible. It is my hope that by following her own research notes, I will gain an even greater understanding of just how she managed to accomplish these rapid changes.
And yes, indeed, we have recovered the Viper King corpse from this mission and can now autopsy it, which, as you can most likely imagine, will unlock a few pretty nifty things to play with, and I would actually like to show that to you today. So let's keep scanning for just a brief second here, which then brings us to the completion of the Advent turret rack breakdown.
These findings will likely prove crucial to our ongoing efforts, Commander.
And so we can now assign a new research project, although let us not completely disregard this one.
Advent doesn't seem to have any issues stationing completely autonomous weapons in close proximity to the people in those cities. Really shows you how much they care.
Now, we actually care quite a bit about completing this research, mostly because, as you can see, it unlocks a brand new facility. This defense matrix is what we have kept a building spot open for, and is also the reason why I'm hoping for another Avenger defense mission sometime soon, just so I can show you how that mission goes with a bit of backup, but all in due time. For now, the Viper King autopsy has been inspired and the Chrysalid autopsy can be completed instantly, so let's take care of that before we do anything else.
Presumably, the name Chrysalid derives from assumptions made previously about the creature's unusual means of reproduction. Although rumors have long prevailed about the existence of zombies created as a byproduct of the chrysalid gestation, recent reports seem to indicate a new, equally disturbing means of propagating their species. Even my own intellectual curiosity is not enough to overcome my doubts as to whether or not it was really a wise decision for our troops to bring this particular specimen on board the ship.
Now, weirdly enough, the Chrysalid autopsy unlocks the Hellweave, an improvement to the nanoscale vest that also sets enemies on fire if they attack from melee range, which is obviously very useful against Chrysalids, but doesn't really make too much sense as a result derived from their autopsy. Still, it is straight up better than the nanoscale vest in every aspect, so we might just acquire one eventually. But for now, let's spend one more day here to autopsy the Viper King.
Although it had been years since I conducted my last autopsy, I found the process returned to me quite naturally. This subject was perhaps less intimidating because of its similarities to varying reptile species found naturally on Earth. Because of extensive cytogenetic modifications to the subject's chromosomes, this could very well be the only male variant in the entire species.
Right, and with that autopsy underway, we could now continue scanning, but first let us construct that defense matrix. We can easily afford both the supplies as well as the power requirement, and so the Avenger will soon have automated turrets to help out in any defensive scenario.
Defense facility construction initiated.
Now, 28 days is also quite the long time to wait for the completion of this construction. Luckily, we can afford to at least temporarily assign Ophelia Morningstar over here. Yes, this loses us 2 resistance contact slots, but even with that loss we still have 2 to spare, and she will also be able to return to her old post in just 2 weeks. Now, we won't continue scanning for that long here today, but I think one more day we can afford. And while we're at it, let's actually go and grab a few more alien alloys. You might be thinking that the almost 200 we already have would be enough, but that's actually not quite the case. To unlock every last item in the game, we need substantially more, so I guess this is what we will be doing for the next 8 days.
We completed our research in remarkable time, Commander.
And there we are, the Viper King autopsy has been completed. Let's see what that gives us.
Despite an extensive study of Dr. Vahlen's research reports, I have yet to discover how she came to acquire such an impressive understanding of the processes involved in the editing and manipulation of alien genetic material.
Alright, so the Viper King autopsy has unlocked a new proving ground project, the Serpent suit, quite clearly a suit of armor. In many ways, it is actually quite similar to the Spider suit, being a light armor with a grappling hook. We'll talk a bit more about its capabilities once we can actually use it. For now though, we have a choice to make, because we have just been gifted a technology breakthrough for improved cannons. So we could now spend the next 10 days improving the damage output of our Grenadier's main weapon by 1 point, or we could simply continue to unlock powered armor. Let me know what you think we should do here. If we don't pursue improved cannons at this point, it will be lost, but I'm not entirely sure whether or not that's actually losing us that much. Either way, one last thing we'll do here today and then we'll wrap up the episode, that is to grab the Serpent suit.
Interesting choice. I'll send word as soon as we're finished, Commander.
I don't really think we need to staff an engineer in the proving ground to speed this up just yet. Yes, the Serpent suit can be extremely useful, but it won't be game-changing. And so, after about 40 minutes, I think we have reached a good point to make the cut in today's episode. I hope you enjoyed our first dive into the Alien Hunters DLC. Suffice it to say, we have not seen the last of it. With that being said, let's wrap things up for today. As always, I hope you enjoyed the episode, and if you did, then I would be very happy if you could leave a thumbs up. If you like what I'm doing and want to support me and my channel further, then you can of course also go ahead and subscribe to stay up to date, grab some merch over on shop.petecomplete.com, or check out and maybe even pledge to the Pete Complete Patreon. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you next time. Cheers.